When Friedrich Nietzsche introduced the figure of the Übermensch, or the Overman, he was offering a vision, not a dogma. He was not laying down commandments for others to follow, but throwing a challenge into the world. The Übermensch is one of philosophy's most misunderstood concepts, sometimes mistaken for a fantasy of physical superiority, a comic book superhero, or even twisted into political propaganda by those who never grasped Nietzsche's true intent. But in reality, the Übermensch is not about physical dominance. It is about the evolution of the human spirit. It is Nietzsche's vision of what humanity could become if it dared to break free from conformity, mediocrity, and the collapse of old values. And the question that still burns today is this: what does it mean to live like an Übermensch in our modern age of noise, distraction, and comfort? Nietzsche lived in the late 19th century, at a time when Europe was shifting under the weight of industrialization, science, and skepticism. Old religious certainties were crumbling, and the rise of secular thought left many people feeling unmoored. Nietzsche captured this crisis with his famous declaration, "God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him." But he did not mean this as an attack on God alone. He meant that the foundations of Western morality, built on centuries of religious faith, were dissolving under the pressures of modern thought. If the old values no longer held, then humanity stood on the edge of a void. And Nietzsche feared that this void would be filled not with strength, but with weakness. For in the absence of transcendent values, people might collapse into what Nietzsche called the last man. The last man is comfortable, shallow, and complacent. He avoids struggle, avoids risk, avoids pain. He seeks only entertainment, consumption, and convenience. He believes he is happy, but his happiness is a dull, empty thing. He shrinks from greatness, from danger, from any demand that requires real courage. And Nietzsche warned that this is the direction humanity could take if it refuses to strive higher. Against the last man, Nietzsche set the figure of the Übermensch, the one who dares to overcome, to create, to live with intensity and purpose. To live like an Übermensch today is to resist the temptation of becoming the last man. It is to refuse the narcotic of endless scrolling, mindless entertainment, and consumer distractions. It is to resist being defined by algorithms, trends, or shallow measures of success. The Übermensch is not someone who withdraws from the world, but someone who engages with life at its fullest, who carves out values of their own, who creates meaning where none is given. This begins with Nietzsche's recognition that life has no inherent meaning. For some, this is despairing. For Nietzsche, it was liberation. If there is no pre-written script for our existence, then we are free to write our own. The Übermensch is the one who seizes this freedom with both hands, who accepts the terrifying responsibility of shaping life into something worth living. Living like an Übermensch is not about waiting for meaning to appear, it is about creating it, moment by moment, choice by choice. But what does that creation look like? For Nietzsche, it meant becoming a value creator. Human beings, he argued, have too often been slaves to inherited values, values handed down by religion, tradition, or authority. These values often demand obedience, conformity, and denial of life's richness. The Übermensch does not blindly obey. He questions. He evaluates. And if necessary, he destroys what is false in order to build what is true. This act of destruction is not nihilism. It is clearing the ground so that new values can grow. It is the work of the artist, the sculptor, who must chip away the stone to reveal the statue within. Living like an Übermensch means seeing yourself as both the sculptor and the stone. You are shaping yourself, and you are the material being shaped. Every struggle, every choice, every hardship becomes part of the sculpture. The Übermensch embraces this process with courage, even with joy. He does not seek a final resting place of comfort. He lives in the movement, the striving, the becoming. For Nietzsche, humanity is not a completed being, it is a bridge, a rope stretched between the animal and the Übermensch. And our task is not to cling to the rope but to walk across it, trembling though we may be, toward something greater. And this path is not possible without suffering. Nietzsche never promised ease. In fact, he believed that suffering is essential for growth. The Übermensch does not run from pain, he transforms it. He does not deny hardship, he uses it as fuel. To live like an Übermensch is to see every obstacle as material for greatness. Think of a blacksmith forging steel. The hammer strikes, the fire burns, the metal bends and hardens into shape. So too with the human spirit. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without struggle, there is no depth. Without suffering, there is no greatness. In our modern world, where comfort is often treated as the highest good, this lesson is difficult but vital. We are surrounded by technology that makes life easier, quicker, safer. And yet, depression and anxiety are widespread. People feel aimless, trapped in cycles of distraction, longing for something more. Nietzsche would say that what we lack is not comfort, but challenge. The Übermensch thrives in challenge, because it is there that the self is overcome and remade. To live like an Übermensch today is to stop fleeing from discomfort and to embrace it as the crucible of becoming. Nietzsche offered one of his most radical tests for the Übermensch in the idea of eternal recurrence. Imagine, he said, that a demon whispered to you, this life, with all its pains and joys, all its mistakes and triumphs, will be lived again and again, endlessly, without change. Would you collapse in despair at this thought? Or would you embrace it, shouting, yes? For Nietzsche, the Übermensch embraces it. He lives in such a way that he would willingly live it again, exactly as it is, for all eternity. To live like an Übermensch today is to embrace life so fully that even its hardships are welcomed, to affirm existence in its entirety. This affirmation of life requires courage, because life is unpredictable, chaotic, and often cruel. But Nietzsche's Übermensch does not seek to escape this chaos. He seeks to dance with it. Nietzsche often spoke of life as a dance, a game, a creative act. The Übermensch is not grim, not heavy with the weight of duty. He is playful, joyful, overflowing with the power of creation. To live like an Übermensch today is to cultivate this spirit of play, to find joy even in struggle, to treat existence not as a burden but as a canvas. And this vision has profound implications for how we live in our modern world. In a time of political polarization, cultural fragmentation, and technological overload, it is easy to sink into cynicism. It is easy to become the last man, passive, distracted, content with shallow pleasures. Nietzsche challenges us to rise above this. To be an Übermensch is not to dominate others, but to dominate oneself. It is to conquer laziness, fear, resentment, and despair. It is to become the master of your own existence, to live with such intensity that your life itself becomes a work of art. This means rejecting herd mentality. Nietzsche was relentless in his critique of the herd, the mass of people who think as others think, who live as others live, who never dare to question. To live like an Übermensch today is to resist the pressure of conformity, to stand apart when necessary, to think independently even when the crowd mocks or resists. It is to say, I will not be shaped by the herd, I will shape myself. But Nietzsche also warned of a danger, the spirit of resentment. When people feel weak, powerless, or envious, they often turn to resentment as their weapon. They condemn the strong, they moralize against success, they cling to bitterness. The Übermensch rejects resentment. He does not waste energy on blaming others. He channels his energy into creation, not complaint. To live like an Übermensch today is to stop blaming society, circumstances, or fate, and to begin creating meaning and strength within one's own life. Nietzsche himself lived a life of struggle. He was plagued by illness, loneliness, and misunderstanding. He died largely unrecognized, his ideas misinterpreted and twisted by others. And yet, his vision of the Übermensch endures because it speaks to something timeless, the human need to rise above mediocrity, to turn suffering into strength, to live with courage and creativity. Living like an Übermensch today does not mean abandoning our humanity. It means embracing it fully, with all its contradictions. It means daring to live authentically in a world that constantly tries to pull us into conformity. It means choosing to overcome ourselves again and again, to strive for something greater, not because we are promised heaven or reward, but because the striving itself is what makes life worth living. The Übermensch is not a distant myth. It is a possibility within each of us. It is the part of us that refuses to settle, that seeks to create, that embraces the fire of existence. To live like an Übermensch today is to wake each morning and ask, how will I shape my life into art? How will I turn my struggles into strength? How will I affirm life, not with resignation, but with joy? Nietzsche did not give us a blueprint. He gave us a challenge. And the challenge is this: in a world where meaning is not given, will you create it? In a world of conformity, will you dare to stand apart? In a world of comfort, will you embrace struggle? In a world of distraction, will you live with intensity? To live like an Übermensch is to answer yes to these questions, to walk the rope across the abyss, to risk, to strive, to dance, to affirm. And so the call remains: do not become the last man. Do not sink into comfort and mediocrity. Do not hide behind excuses or resentments. Instead, create, overcome, affirm, become. Live not as a shadow, but as a creator. Live not as a follower, but as a value maker. Live not as one who endures life, but as one who celebrates it. Live, in other words, like an Übermensch.